Hello and welcome to Lovely English Stories. Thank you for stopping by. This story is for upper intermediate English learners, or if you're a B1 learner, you could give this a go and challenge yourself. So, are you ready? Well, let's get started. B2 C1 English Story. Restoring Snowdrop House. When Ellie and James bought the crumbling Victorian house on Snowdrop Lane, they were full of excitement. The tall ceilings, sash windows, and faded floral tiles whispered stories of a grand past. It was their dream project, a beautiful but tired old home waiting to be brought back to life. They had saved for years, and this was finally their chance to create something special. But they quickly discovered that dreams and reality don't always match. The first shock came with the survey. The roof needed replacing, several walls were damp, and the electrics hadn't been touched since the 1960s. What started as a £40,000 renovation budget quickly climbed to £65,000, and even that was tight. They applied for a small loan to cover unexpected repairs, but the worries started to creep in. Ellie, a freelance graphic designer, worked from a makeshift desk in the only warm room. James, a primary school teacher, spent evenings ripping up floorboards and calling tradespeople. Dust coated everything. Mornings were loud with drilling. Evenings were spent arguing over paint colours and which windows needed replacing first. Their relationship began to feel the pressure. Small disagreements became louder. They were exhausted. Financially, physically, emotionally. One night, after a long day of installing insulation in the loft, James sat on the stairs and sighed. I don't even remember why we wanted this place anymore. Ellie sat beside him, her hands covered in paint, because we saw what it could be. Still, the stress continued. Delays with the plasterer pushed back their schedule by weeks. The boiler broke in early March. They lived with portable heaters and takeaways. Friends stopped asking them out. They were always too busy or too tired. But as April rolled in, things slowly began to change. The walls were freshly painted, the kitchen was fitted, and the bathroom gleamed with new tiles and brass fittings. Light poured through the cleaned sash windows, bouncing off the freshly sanded wooden floors. On sunny afternoons, Ellie and James sat on their small patio, sipping tea and admiring the climbing roses they had planted together. By the start of June, the house was finally finished. They held a small garden party for friends and neighbours to celebrate. String lights hung between the trees, and the air smelled of summer and new beginnings. I didn't think we'd get here, James said quietly, holding Ellie's hand as they watched the sunset from their new garden bench. Neither did I, she replied. But look at it now. Snowdrop House had become more than a renovation project. It was a home built not just with money and hard work, but with patience, resilience, and love. Every dented floorboard they kept, every vintage light they'd restored, told a story of the journey they'd taken together. It hadn't been easy. In fact, it had been one of the hardest years of their lives. But it was worth it. Every bit of it. Now, let's go through some of the upper intermediate and advanced vocabulary from this story. Let's start with boiler. A boiler is a machine that heats water for the house. The old boiler stopped working, leaving the house freezing. Coated, or to coat, means to cover with a layer of something. Everything in the house was coated in dust during the renovation. Dented, or to dent, means to be marked with a small hollow caused by pressure or a hit. They decided to keep the dented floorboards. Drilling, or to drill, means to make holes using a drill. The sound of drilling started early every morning during construction. Electrics. Electrics are the electrical systems in a building. The house's old electrics had to be completely rewired. It's a very expensive job. Fittings. Fittings are small fixed items in a home like taps or lights, also expensive. They chose brass fittings for the bathroom to match the vintage look. Floorboard. This is a wooden board that forms part of a floor. James spent hours sanding the Victorian floorboards. Freelance. Freelance means someone who works for different clients rather than one employer. Ellie worked as a freelance designer while managing the renovation. Gleamed, or to gleam, means to shine brightly, often after cleaning. The kitchen tiles gleamed after they were polished. Insulation. Insulation is material used to stop heat from escaping. A lot of people have this in their cellars or up in their attic. James added insulation to the loft to make the house warmer. Makeshift. Makeshift means something that is temporary but not ideal. Ellie worked at a makeshift desk in the only warm room. Sash. A sash is a type of traditional window that slides up or down. They paid extra to restore the old sash windows. Snowdrop. The name of the house is Snowdrop House, and a snowdrop is a lovely little small white flower that blooms in late winter and early spring. Snowdrops began to appear in the garden just as the project neared its end. Tiles. Tiles are flat pieces of ceramic used for covering walls or floors. The bathroom was beautiful, with white tiles with a Victorian style. Tradespeople. Tradespeople are skilled workers like plumbers or electricians or roofers or gardeners. Finding reliable tradespeople took longer than they expected. Victorian. So the house is Victorian, and this means from a time of Queen Victoria, which was from 1837 to 1901. So that means the house was built during that time. The house had many Victorian features. Vintage. If something is vintage, it is from the past and often has some sort of nostalgic value to it. They chose vintage lights to match the home's style. Creep. To creep means to slowly increase or appear without notice. Costs began to creep up after more problems were found. Crumbling. Crumbling means to break apart or fall into decay or disrepair. The crumbling plaster showed just how old the house really was. Loft. Now, earlier I said attic, so it can be called a loft or an attic. Both words are completely fine. And this is the space just under the roof. They used the loft or the attic for extra storage and insulation. Resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover from difficulty. Their resilience kept them going through every setback. Brass. Brass is a shiny yellow metal often used in home fittings, and it's very fashionable at the moment. They chose brass taps for the bathroom. Grand. If something is grand, it is impressive and large. The hallway still had its grand original staircase. Portable. If something is portable, it is easy to move around. They used a portable heater when the boiler broke. Renovation, which is what they're doing. It's the act of fixing up an old building, or it could be an old bike or a shed, or many things can be renovated, but we often use it for houses. The renovation took longer and the cost more than they'd originally planned. Sipping or to sip means to drink slowly. Ellie was sipping tea while admiring their finished home. Bench. A bench is a long seat for more than one person. They sat on their garden bench watching the sunset. Damp. If something is damp, it is slightly wet and cold. The walls were damp and needed to be treated. This is a problem you get in a lot of old houses in the UK is damp. Disagreements. Disagreements are when people do not agree. Renovation stress led to many small disagreements. Emotionally. Emotionally means related to strong feelings. They were both emotionally and physically exhausted. Faded means to lose colour or brightness over time. They loved the faded wallpaper hidden under the paint. Financially means in a way related to money. The project was tough financially, but worth it. Patience. Patience is the ability to wait calmly. Restoring the house tested their patience every day. Restored. If something is restored, then it is fixed to look like new or the original. They restored the fireplace to its former beauty. Survey. Now, people often get these when they're buying a property in the UK, and it is a detailed report about a house's condition. The survey showed that the roof needed replacing. The surveys basically go through the property and find things wrong with it so that you know what you're letting yourself in for. Whispered, or to whisper, means to have spoken or to speak very quietly. The old floors seem to whisper stories from the past. We hope you enjoyed this lovely English story and the vocabulary explanations. Thank you for stopping by. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Get productive and check out our language learning productivity packs on Etsy. Don't forget to use code YouTube10 for 10% off. See you soon!